Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in the clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And for those of you that don't know, I don't know how you wouldn't know this, but on Saturday, Donald Trump was shot in the ear after an attempted assassination done by some 20-year-old who seems to be the only 20-year-old without a social media presence. Now, this video is not going to be on details of the shooting, the shooter, or how bad the Secret Service was. There are plenty of other channels going through all of that who would do more justice to that than me. Now, as usual, I'm focusing a lot more on Britain, and as is quite ironic with the title of this, I am making this all about Britain's reaction to it, or at least from the elites. Firstly, naturally, we're going to go into how this news was broken. Generally, it wasn't actually too bad for most of the mainstream media, but BBC News had the CNN approach of not really saying what happened, with their title for the breaking news piece being Trump rushed off stage at Pennsylvania rally, which I've seen cope for this, including things like, oh, we don't know the full details yet, we don't know if it was an assassination attempt, when in reality, I think if your president is being shot at a rally, I think it's okay to jump to that conclusion. I can't think of a time ever at a presidential speech or anything like that where the president has been shot at and it's been anything other than an assassination attempt. So obviously BBC going the way of CNN there, but what do you expect? Sunday Telegraph, which is typically quite a right-wing or at least Tory paper, for some reason said Trump shot at rally with shot in quotes. Again, not entirely sure why shots is in quotes there, but from everything I can see throughout the mainstream media, these were the two only egregious ways that I saw the whole thing being reported. Everything else seemed to be pretty accurate. It's quite hard to get away with hiding the truth on this one, I think. But it didn't take long for our media elites to start penning articles and throwing out opinions on Twitter that practically made it all about them. A classic example from Sky is assassination attempt on Trump is a wake-up call for UK MPs. MPs in the UK may see the assassination attempt on Trump as a wake-up call about their own safety and security. I would like to remind everyone that we have had 2 MPs be killed over the past decade, which I believe is 2 more of our elected representatives that have been killed in the past decade than in America. But obviously we're so overly obsessed with Americans that we care a hell of a lot more about a current presidential candidate being glanced in the ear than we do about one of our Conservative MPs being stabbed in the middle of a surgery. In front of a whole crowd of his own constituents, an Islamist walks up and stabs him. That happened 3 years ago, but everyone seems to have forgotten. And of course we've had many stories this election alone about numerous MPs, or currently sitting MPs, and even candidates who suffered a hell of a lot of electoral intimidation, direct threats and even direct violence with tyres slashed of Labour volunteers. But no, Donald Trump getting glanced in the ear, that is the reason we need to start taking seriously threats to our MPs. Well done, Sky. Anyway, Reform leader and Clacton MP Nigel Farage openly said that he was going to now go over to America to meet his friend Donald Trump and help him with the campaign for a couple of weeks because, well, he's his friend. It is very good to have very good relations with our biggest ally, and having direct lines to the president from one of our MPs, yes, that is absolutely stupendous. That is excellent. That is good work from Nigel Farage. Still, there were popular posts made saying he's a member of Parliament who's missing the King's speech to go on to the Republican National Convention in the US. How do you take him seriously? Oof. Again, working in Parliament on behalf of your king, keeping very good relations with the now very likely next President of the United States of America, again our biggest ally, probably good work, probably very good work on behalf of Parliament, and I wouldn't be shocked if people in Clacton understand that yes, this is actually a good move. Anyway, plenty of likes and retweets for that post, but again, probably not the most egregious thing I've seen in reaction to this. Because Jon Sopel, ex-BBC North American editor and host of The News Agents, one of the most new elite podcasts I can think of, had this to say: the roll call of political violence is depressingly long in the US. 4 presidents assassinated, Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley and JFK. 3 attempted of serving or former, Teddy Roosevelt, Reagan and now Trump. And that's not including Congress. Thank God for us saying gun laws. which again, I just had a quick check. The last time there was gun violence against a congressman, it was against a Republican from Louisiana, Steve Scalise, who was shot in the hip by a gunman using a rifle during a practice session for the 2017 Congressional Baseball game at the Eugene Simpson Stadium Park in Virginia, which for context was just 1 year after Joe Cox was stabbed and fatally shot. In other words, if we are going to bring Congress up, it appears that it is about as dangerous and a threat from guns as the UK is. Anyway, John went on to say, I'm sure the former president must have been in shock when the US Secret Service led him to safety, but seeing him mouth, I think he was shouting it, fight, 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 was depressing. I don't know what you expect from someone being shot at to say. Okay, the US has seen enough fighting and political turmoil. Okay, let all violence be condemned calmly and firmly. Again, the gunman got shot. The gunman is dead. I think that is a good thing. I mean, this is certainly a thing I've seen all over Twitter, both from the American and UK new elite types, who think that absolutely every time you say the word fight, you only mean physically. But even if this did mean physically, there is absolutely no problem with that. Again, he was shot at. Someone tried to kill him. Do we really think that Trump saying fight, fight, fight after having a chunk of his ear shot off is the problem here? Because I think the problem is that he got a chunk of his ear shot off because he happened to move his head half an inch as a bullet was heading for his brain. Anyway, if the tweet wasn't enough, Joe Pell even said it on LBC.
When Joe Biden said in that clip, it's unheard of for political violence like this in America to happen, not true.
I can't believe he's actually well-actuallying President Biden, and I can't believe I'm actually going on the defence for Biden here. Obviously, bear in mind Biden is senile and losing his wit, Biden meant it's not normalised. It is not normalised, because you're about to bring up 4 people, all of which were shot over 40 years ago.
I mean, it's got a long pedigree. 4 presidents have been assassinated. There have been attempted assassination attempts. Their political violence is laced through the American story.
Yes, and when it happens, pretty much everyone says it's bad and we don't like it. That's what he means. He means it's unheard of to have something like this happen and for anyone to think it's acceptable. This isn't difficult, and I mean, I'm not surprised that our ex-BBC journalists are effectively the human personifications of the well-actually guy.
I mean, maybe Donald Trump was in shock when he was picked up when he's surrounded by those Secret Service agents. But seeing him mouth the words fight, fight, fight to his supporters. Now, of course, fight is a metaphor.
I love how he's already having to put the cope in there of, I know this is a metaphor, I know he doesn't mean it, but he said fight, fight, fight. Can you believe he said that after he was shot? Yeah, I can. Again, I've done physical sports in the past, I know karate. And, you know, when you're at the receiving end of punches, yeah, your brain does tend to either go into fight or flight mode. I pretty much had to train my brain to have this reaction that Donald Trump has, where, you know, when you get shot at, or if you have any sort of danger come towards you, you say fight, fight, fight. I can't believe he's going to try and finish this point, though, after he's just said, I know it was metaphorical, but, oh, isn't it disgusting? Yeah, it's disgusting he got shot at. It's not disgusting that he said fight, fight, fight.
I'm sure Gareth Southgate will be telling the boys they've got to fight tonight when they go on the pitch against Spain.
We lost that match, by the way. Once again, it's not come home. But yes, please make the point that Donald Trump wants more violence.
But for others, it's an invitation. And we saw that on January the 6th.
Ah, amazing. The place where one person died, and it was one of the people apparently having this massive riot that was apparently very violent, according to Jon Sopel, against US congressmen, US security forces, whatever, whoever was at the Capitol Hill building. Again, I think it's been long enough where I just never used to reference it, but in terms of insurrections and violently overthrowing a government, it has to be one of the most pathetic attempts I've ever seen in my life. Basically no violence happened, apart from, of course, the one poor woman who was shot and killed. The worst you can get majority of those people on is trespassing charges, whereas, you know, the people that were stealing things, breaking windows, all that, fine to punish them. That is absolutely fine. But honestly, it's that type of thing that everyone forgets about until some random journalist or politician brings it up as if it's the worst thing to ever happen to America. Which, again, is quite funny to bring that up in the same point as saying, oh, don't you know 4 presidents have been shot and killed? I don't think you're going to see another January 6th happen again. Mainly because I think Donald Trump's going to win anyway.
If you tell people to fight in America, there is a fair chance that some of them will.
Yes, but of course that's not true of, I don't know, any sport ever, I guess. Again, this is all with the background knowledge that Trump has lost a chunk of his ear after someone tried to take his brain out. It just rings hollow that he's saying, oh, aren't you worried about these nasty Republicans with all their guns? I suppose on a technicality, the shooter was a Republican. However, he did also donate to the Democrats. So what's going on in that schizo brain, I don't know. But the point is that even when Donald Trump nearly loses his head, plenty of journalists are still happy to come out and say that he's the bad guy in this situation. It's pretty amazing.
And what you don't want to see is political violence begetting more political violence. And that is the dangerous tinderbox moment that I think we're probably now in America.
I'm going to be honest, I'm actually pretty shocked that nothing has happened. I mean, think back to Black Lives Matter. You know, George Floyd gets quote unquote killed by a police officer, and then half America's on fire for half of the summer. Pretty amazingly, they make an autonomous zone for a month or so in Seattle, where rape cases go through the roof because effectively these people don't realise they're in one of the most ordered societies on the planet, and that bad people do really bad things when there's no deterrent against it. But point still stands. Political violence has been going on in America for some years now, and I'm not going to lie, January 6th was a bit of a pressure valve release. That's all it was, and again, remarkably non-violent insurrection. One person directly died due to a gunshot, and it was one of the protesters. I just don't buy that American violence is all coming from one side here. It's mostly coming from the left, and as much as I've been on Twitter and I've seen people arguing about this point, Destiny's obviously gone off the deep end on it. From my perspective, I wouldn't be shocked if there are plenty of Republicans that want to see some Democrat congressman or whoever swinging on a noose. I wouldn't be shocked about that. There's always going to be people like that. However, when it comes to direct political violence, it appears that it's only Donald Trump who's been at the receiving end of any serious amount of it. Obviously, there was the Pelosi husband issue with the hammer, but as far as I've been made aware, and please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, that was just a bit of a schizo with a hammer. There didn't seem to be much political motive for that. But it's amazing. I mean, for Americans who don't know, literally, we don't have a Fox News over here, really. We have GB News, but even they're not as fully on the Trump train as, say, Fox News and other right-wing pundits. They're way better than the BBC, say, but not perfect. So all people really hear about in the UK is basically Democrat propaganda. That is all we hear, which is why I think it's very good that I have American friends, because I can actually get the full story and other sides to these arguments. So it's not particularly shocking then that since all the elites and journalists get is Democrat propaganda, then they just spread it. But it gets very, very annoying, and it spreads out to even lower level activists. Femi, that famous person who can't let Brexit go, man who tried to overthrow an election with violence, even though he told everyone to go home, it's over, apparently falls victim to a man trying to overthrow an election with violence. If I speak ... Again, this is just pure Democrat propaganda being spilled out throughout the upper echelons of British society. I mean, I still hear people say, oh, the left wing, the right wing here is still to the left of the Democrats. It's not true. It's not true by any stretch of the imagination. New Labour, especially under Keir Starmer, and the Democrats over in America, they're pretty much ideologically aligned. We probably publicly spend way more than they do over in America when it comes to public spending, but still, point still stands, culturally especially, very much on the same level. But it makes a hell of a lot of Brits feel better thinking that they are to the left of the US, because being to the left of anything makes you a better person in these people's brains. Then again, I think the most egregious reaction to Trump being shot was from Ben Smoke, who is a journalist for HUCK magazine, an independent current events magazine, as you can already see on the screen. He said missed opportunities. On the left, obviously, Donald Trump surviving a headshot, and obviously Nigel Farage surviving a plane crash. Again, I know it's a meme at this point. If anyone on the left ever says we're for kind of gentler politics or something like that, which is not a phrase I've actually heard them say for a while because I think they're quite open about wanting their enemies killed, then yeah, just don't believe them. As I say, they don't really say it anymore anyway, but these people, especially with Destiny's reaction, clearly want someone like me dead. I am a fan of Farage. I'm a fan of Trump. They think I'm the worst person imaginable on earth for that. You know, best case scenario, they'll think I'm a stupid person. Worst case scenario, they think I'm pure evil. Even though I don't think your morals come from your opinions, your morals come from your actions, obviously. And as far as I'm concerned, these two people, Donald Trump and Nigel Farage, they've not done anything particularly evil beyond cheating on their wives, which, yes, is evil, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to actually being statesmen and things that they do in their positions of power, they've done nothing wrong. Anyway, the most egregious example of making Donald Trump nearly dying all about yourself had to come from BBC and Times reporter David Aaronovitch. He tweeted after the attempted assassination, "This morning a tweet that I deleted, clearly satirical but deliberately misinterpreted, has been resurrected and therefore reproduced far more often than the original. Not only does this now endanger me, but also maliciously seeks to obscure my intention, to deplore such violence utterly." Which, usually I'm thinking, oh, fair enough, I don't like things being misrepresented. So what I'm going to do is show you the screenshot of his original tweet. "If I was Biden, I'd hurry up and have Trump murdered on the basis that he is a threat to America's security. Hashtag SCOTUS." Now, this is in reaction to the Supreme Court. Again, I'm not going to go into the details because I don't know them too well, but from what I understand, the Supreme Court came to a decision that a president has legal immunity for taking actions that are done on behalf of America, if that makes sense, or in office on behalf of their... In other words, they can't go out and just seek revenge and willy-nilly and shoot whoever they want. They have to have, effectively from what I can tell, consensus from other officials around the White House and throughout the US government that such action is reasonable and needs to be taken. But obviously, David took it the wrong way and thought, well, Biden can just get away with murdering Trump, and, here's the official reason to do it. So, is it satirical? Yeah. On the other hand, it is definitely not the tweet I'd be making when temperatures are running high in this particular election campaign, and again, not when political violence seems to be on the rise. This is not the type of thing I would be joking about, at least on Twitter. And so that's why David's really annoyed about this and why he's made this tweet. I mean, he's not tweeted anything about, oh, I'm sorry about tweeting that. Now that I've seen that Trump's nearly been killed, I see why I shouldn't really be posting these things. No, he doesn't say that. It's just, oh, there are evil actors out there who are taking what I said at face value. It's Twitter, of course people are going to do that. And therefore want me fired from the Times and the BBC. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't necessarily be against them firing him for this, because this really was a horrible tweet. Even if Trump didn't suffer from an assassination attempt, I'd say get rid of him. Like, I get that it was supposed to be a joke. I get that was your intention. If you can't read the room, then you're an idiot, though. Again, these are the people that think January 6th was one of the worst things to happen in terms of modern violence. Blame it pretty much all on Trump's rhetoric, and will then basically have the exact same rhetoric but against Trump. In fact, no, this is worse than any of Trump's rhetoric, actually. And then they will play victim for doing something this monumentally stupid. Again, nothing in this tweet about I hope Trump's okay. It's just, oh God, Trump got shot and now people are blaming me. Oh, can you believe it? Yeah, I can, David. Anyway, that's all the media personalities we're going to be going through for now. I think we need to take a look at the new cabinet. Firstly, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for, it used to be called Levelling Up, but for Local Government and Housing. Back in 2001, after January 6, Angela Rayner said the violence that Donald Trump has unleashed is terrifying. Again, there were smashed windows, things stolen from the Capitol Hill building. Those people absolutely fine to be punished. Everyone else who was just trespassing, I think you need to let it go. Again, though, to call this unleashed violence and terrifying, a little bit ridiculous. And the Republicans who stood by him have blood on their hands. Again, one woman died and she was part of the protest. Our spineless Prime Minister and toadying Foreign Secretary, Ugh. I can't even remember who the Foreign Secretary was, by the way, but I don't think they made a comment on January 6th. Have also take their fair share of shame for not calling out his lies after the election. So we have a Deputy Prime Minister who thinks the almost guaranteed next president is a violence encouraging and terrifying person to have in office. This doesn't look great, not a great look. Anyway, our current Foreign Secretary, who is going to be the person directly communicating with America, is David Lammy, and obviously on screen now is what he said back in 2017. I'll read the Daily Mail story today. Yes, if Trump comes to the UK, I will be out protesting on the streets. He's a racist, KKK and Nazi sympathiser. Because that's what all the cool kids were calling Trump back in 2017. We don't really call him a racist, Nazi sympathiser or KKK sympathiser these days. Because, you know, he became president and didn't do anything racist. But that wasn't the worst thing he said about President Trump. Oh no. When Donald Trump said there has been no president in the history of our country who has been treated so badly as I have, which I think is getting close to pretty true. I mean, an attempted assassination attempt is up there with the worst things that have happened, which David Lammy thankfully points out, in that 4 US presidents have been assassinated. Snowflake. Which is one of those tweets that's aged like fine milk. I am genuinely shocked that this has not been deleted yet, but, well, here's Lammy still happy to leave his dangerous rhetoric, I guess we could say, out in the open. Again, I get the point he was making, but if they're going to be very harsh on the way Donald Trump talks, I'm going to be very harsh on them. And of course, our Prime Minister also had words to say about Donald Trump when Dominic Cummings was doing a bit of a firing squad at the media and only allowing certain media companies to ask questions to the government because, frankly, he hates the media because he knows they lie. Keir Starmer said that these are the tactics of Donald Trump, and I'd urge Tory MPs and members of the cabinet to call this behaviour out for what it is, which is divisive and undemocratic. I am sure that after a few years of being in government, Keir Starmer will feel the same way as Dominic Cummings did, though. Anyway, these people are now statesmen. They're now in the cabinet. They now don't have the freedom they once had and have to pretend that they would say similar things a few years ago, as if they haven't been saying Trump should definitely be locked up for the last few years. The UK government condemns all forms of political violence in strongest terms. As we monitor the shocking developments in Pennsylvania, our thoughts and best wishes are with President Trump, along with every victim and their families, because yes, unfortunately, a couple of bystanders were injured and one was even killed. Which, yes, I have seen the tweet that pointed out that Kyle Rittenhouse shoots 3 people in a crowd of leftists and hits a paedophile and 2 women beaters. And at the Trump rally, it was an ex-fire chief who was a pillar of the community. That just shows you the difference. Anyway, point made. They have to be statesmen now. I am glad to see that they are doing it, but yeah. Don't forget, when you're in opposition, you are looking to be leaders at some point. You can't come out and say everything you want to about other countries' leaders, because some people are going to dig that stuff up. Anyway, finally, Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, was interviewed about political violence on BBC earlier today. Once again, naturally, this Labour MP has nothing but Donald Trump, the victim of an assassination attempt, on her mind.
Horrified and angry that our politics has been allowed to descend to that level. The Prime Minister spoke to President Trump last night as we arrived in Berlin.
To pass on his thoughts and prayers, you get the idea with that. I do find it quite funny that she says, I'm horrified that our politics has got to this level, as if, again, this is a very specific US event. I wouldn't say it's our politics, it's American politics. Again, if it were me, I'd be phrasing it in a way of, I'm horrified that Donald Trump, that someone tried to assassinate Donald Trump. I wouldn't try and say it's our politics. I wouldn't try and say that I have been in the same situation, because as far as I can tell, the 2 attempted assassinations in the last 10 years on MPs have both been successful. I can't recall an assassination attempt that failed in the UK in the past 10 years. So, again, really weird that, it's sad that it's got to this level. It's been at this level for a while. We only seem to go after the far right for it when they seem a lot less of a threat, either because clamping down on them has worked, or simply the threat isn't there.
It's been heartening to see many world leaders come out and stand against what happened in America yesterday.
Yep, I would agree. It has been heartwarming to see people who thought that Donald Trump was a KKK and Nazi sympathiser come out and say, yeah, he probably shouldn't be shot, though. She said but, meaning that the first part of this sentence was all nonsense, so she didn't find it heartwarming. what's the but for?
It is part of a wider toxicity of politics. We've just been through the general election here in the UK. It is the most toxic election that I can ever remember participating in.
I'm not saying that this is not something we should talk about. This is obviously a massive problem. I wouldn't put it in the context of, yeah, Donald Trump was shot at, but think about me. I would make it quite clear that, this is nowhere near the toxicity that Donald Trump... Toxicity was shot at, for God's sake. This is nowhere near the situation that Donald Trump has found himself in America. And I am worried that the toxic environment we find ourselves in politically in the UK will or may lead us to a similar situation, though. Like, that would have been fine. But it's very much coming across as it's bad for Donald Trump, but think about me. It's not coming across well.
And I think what we need is real leadership across the political spectrum. But you can rest assured that you'll find that from this government.
And she goes on for about half a minute about how the new cabinet is great and apparently going to literally stop bullets. Just very interesting to see from the UK media and politicians that while being shot at by a crazed maniac, motive still relatively unknown, somehow people are happy to bring round Donald Trump saying fight, fight, fight after literally being shot at is a bigger problem than anything else here. And people who openly called Donald Trump a Nazi a few years ago are now happy to say, condolences sent to Donald Trump for being at the receiving end of a gunshot, wishing him all the best for the future. And I think a large part of this is because they're pretty certain that he's going to win. It's amazing how fickle power makes people. Anyway, that's everything I had for you today. Bit of shilling. Tosh tomorrow night will be very late indeed, starting at around 11 o'clock at night UK time. That is because we are going to be talking about Britain's foreign policy problems in the 19th century, and it is pretty much going to be a lecture by Jack from the Worcester Club. So if you absolutely love your 18th century history of Britain, please do come along and give it a listen. No regional variations on Wednesday. Not really had any concrete plans to replace it with anything yet. Might be doing a gaming stream, might not. Not making any promises there yet. We'll see what goes there. However, failing that, we do have a Crime Guy stream on Friday. That's over on that Crime Guys channel. I will be joining his community quiz. Please do join me for that. Obviously, follow me in the Discord on I nearly said Facebook, I'm not on Facebook, on Twitter, what have you, and obviously I will announce when I'm on that. So that'll be this Friday, and then obviously Saturday we've got Laughing at the Guardian returning, the first one since the election, and obviously the first one since Donald Trump nearly had his brains taken out. So it should be a very, very fun one. So I will see you there. Once again, though, thank you very much for watching, and as usual, until next time, goodbye.